If it is for you and you're saying, no, this is what I'm driven to do, I have to see my ideas out there, look up, change your perspective, and just say to yourself, right, I'm going to get through this. I have to get through this. Yes, there are going to be bad times, but imagine then when things start to get better, how good that's going to feel. Think forward, look forward and say, right, in a year from now, where could I be with this? For whether you like it or not, you have a brand. So make it work for you and not against you. Because as soon as you walk into a room, as soon as somebody sees a social post, as soon as somebody hears you speak, listens to your podcast, anything, they're actually interacting with your brand. So if you could imagine, your business is like a donut. So the audience is the outside rim of the donut and your business is the center of the donut. See all that space in between? That's your brand. It's the space between your business or your products and your people or in your audience.
We have a lot of brands who faced crisis this pandemic. And when we're talking about crisis, I want to know, how do you handle crisis? How do you tell brands, this is how you should react, this is how we should think, this is how we should handle it, these are the first things that we should do? I mean, that's also being cohesive with your brand. It's not every day that we face crisis. How are you cohesive with your branding when facing crisis, when it's not something that you face every day?
Well, if you think about it this way, how I mentioned positioning. Positioning is really critical in positioning. You can position from lots of different ways. You have price positioning, you have product positioning, you have brand positioning. They intertwine, but they are all slightly different, right? If you need to pivot, and I know that's a word, again, that has been bounced around quite a lot lately, given the current world climate. But it is very true. If you need to pivot in your business and do something different, of course you have to have the fortitude, to be able to do that and the grit to be able to do that, and be able to either produce the new product, that the audience needs, or to go into a new market perhaps. But if you have a brand that is well aligned and cohesive, you can either shift that. And if your audience has changed, say, like I said, their problem has changed or their needs have changed, and you need to adjust the product that you put out for them. If your brand is well aligned and well connected with your audience, that's an easy fix, right? If you need to reposition, it's easier to do that if everything is cohesive, because it's almost like picking up a table and shifting it. It's one piece. Rather than, again, if it's not cohesive and it's, I'll give a good metaphor. How with a jigsaw puzzle, if you don't do the jigsaw puzzle on the newspaper and you try to move it off the table, what happens? It falls apart all over the place. If you have done it on, maybe a piece of card or a piece of newspaper, and you need to shift it and reposition it, right? And it has that backing, it's going to move far easier. It's going to stay together far better. And it allows you then to also very clearly see what it is you need to adjust, because you might not only just need to adjust the product, that you create, or possibly something of that nature, but you may need to make adjustments in your brand because you've had to reposition to a new audience, or you've had to maybe reposition. Again, it could be on price or something of that nature. And if your brand is set up as a luxury brand, you might have to make adjustments. But again, if it's one piece and it's one unit, it's very easy to see, right, how do I need to make changes? And it's easy to dive in and to make those changes. Whereas if everything's a bit of a mess, where do you start? You're jumping in and chopping and changing things, and you're not really sure, is this helping? Is this not helping? Is this going to be aligned? Is it not going to be aligned? Because you don't have that clarity and that cohesion set up from the start. So it is really important. Yeah. And it's a helpful tool. It's a helpful tool, like I said, for these kind of times when you do need to be able to maybe shift quickly.
I love the jigsaw puzzle analogy. And that's something I've never seen it that way, that when you need to respond to a certain crisis or you need to adjust something in your brand, you need to pivot somewhere. It's easier if you have that foundation already built for you. I want to shift a little bit to handling a personal crisis. This is now to personal leadership and personal entrepreneurship. We're now talking about the founder, leaders, and the managers tuning in. You have recently gone through a difficult time, and a lot of people actually sink down the depths and never return, especially entrepreneurs who are also having a difficult time in business and then facing a crisis at home or in their personal life. how were you able to handle that? There are some life lessons that I'm sure you carry with you right now that would help a lot of people out there that are struggling in the pandemic and during this economic crisis.
Yes, well, I think myself personally, just to kind of give context, I suppose my husband and I worked together. So we had started to close the consultancy, but we had closed it, I should say. And we're looking to more taking things online into more coming from a teaching perspective as to helping people to build a brand and launch it and, strategy and things of that nature. We were kind of in the midst of that. I was doing a lot of online learning, different programs and things of that nature, trying to figure out, how to put all of this together in an online space, and found some really great people, some really not great courses and things of that nature that I came across as well. And kind of during this time, I myself started to get really bogged down and just started to feel very bad about myself, because I felt quite literally, if I can't complete this course, where is my mind thinking that I can do this program or I can do X, Y, and Z? Am I good enough? And all of those thoughts started to creep in. And at the same time, my husband in November 19 had a stroke. So he was all of a sudden within a day removed from the business. Our whole family dynamic had changed with how we needed to work things. And our business obviously was changing. So in the midst of a pivot, I had to pivot again. And then about 2.5 months later, I was diagnosed with a really rare lymphoma. And then about 2 weeks after that, COVID. So yeah, it was a bit of a trying period. I had to go through treatment and everything during that summer. And we had a lot of other issues as well within the household, just with kids and, problems that they were having with lockdown and things of that nature that I know many of us, were going through. So in the midst of all of that context, yes, it's, and I can't lie and say I didn't toy with the idea of going, right, to heck with this, I've had enough. But I think there is in some of us, and I do believe this, we have this light, we have this energy that in times like that we just need to tap into. Am I going to ever be the best leader in the world? Probably not. Am I ever going to be, maybe, the best speaker or the best, whatever, maybe not. But one thing I have oodles of is grit. I have grit. And I know for any entrepreneurs out there, if there's one thing that you have to have above everything else, it's grit. And I think that comes from that light, from that place within. And it's just grabbing onto that and holding on to it and saying, right, I can do this. I might not be able to do it in the way that I originally imagined. We might have to pivot. We might have to do things differently, but I can do this. I can fulfill my purpose. And I've just been really driven, I suppose, to do that. And I think even more so with everything that I went through, because I know that there are so many people out there like me who have been through maybe not my exact circumstances, but just like you said, they've gone through a pandemic. Maybe they've lost a business. Maybe they've had a pivot, like we have it, and completely changed their business. Pretty much start over. They've had personal health issues or family or friends' health issues. And it's a lot and it's very overwhelming. But I would say if you can dig deep and just have gratitude as well. And I know that word's bounced around a lot, but have gratitude in knowing the fact that you're not alone. There are other people out there who are going through similar situations, and that you can get through it. And there's always going to be people who have gone through more than you. A lot of people hear my story, go, oh my goodness, look at everything you've been, I have nothing to worry about. And that's not the point of me telling my story. The point of me telling my story isn't to say, well, my story's worse than yours. Look at everything I went through. But it's simply to say, the things that I have gone through, I've been able to overcome. There's been things even before that I've had to overcome, that at the time I thought, oh my goodness, this is so hard. How am I ever going to overcome this? It took me a year to be able to do a Facebook Live because of my GAD and, just being autistic. And I found it very, very difficult. And then a visceral fear. And that was extremely hard for me, but I did it. I set myself a 100-day challenge and I was on day 85 when my husband had a stroke. So I almost made it, but I had to really, really work at it and have that grit and determination to do hard things. But I'm always grateful for and know that there's people who have been, have it worse than me in business and in personal life. and there's always going to be people who maybe from my point of view have it easier, but life's about perspective. And if you can keep the perspective that, there's, like I said, there's always people worse, there's always people better off, worse off. But I'm grateful for the things that I have. I'm grateful for where I am at and what I do have at this time. And from an entrepreneurial point of view, what are most entrepreneurs about? Most of us, now there are some of us who are just out to make money, but most of us are about what? We're about ideas. It's about getting our ideas out there. And whether it's just because we're creators and we're just, like ideas and we just have to get them out before we explode, or it's about maybe having those ideas and the impact that they want to have. And if we can continue to do that, we should be grateful in whatever form, right? Because we still are able to fulfill our purpose. And I do believe in order for us to be an entrepreneur, we have to be driven towards it, because it's not an easy choice by any means. So it's just sticking with it, sticking with it and just having that belief.
And no one's great the first time either. So it's funny because you mentioned you had a bit of a difficult time. It's not a bit. It's a hell of a difficult time we went through. And I think especially for first-time entrepreneurs, grit is a lot more important than being a good leader or the best speaker or communicator at that. Grit is even more important. Standing up when you fall down, that's even more important than being a great leader and a great speaker when you're in the world of entrepreneurship. Life is hard. I'm sure you'd agree. And the sooner people realize and accept that, the better you're able to deal with it. I haven't met a pessimistic entrepreneur yet. All entrepreneurs, I believe, are optimists. But what do you tell people who are in the rabbit hole? In their minds, they're going in a downward spiral. They feel like they're a victim of life and they feel helpless. What are some of the things that you tell them?
Number one, I would say to look up. You can't see the light if you're always looking down at your feet. If you're always looking down, you're going to continue to dig down. So try and change your perspective. Look up, try and look at things differently. Look at things with a fresh point of view. Step back for a week. Step away from your business for a week if you need to, or 2 weeks, and then come back to it. And maybe you'll have sometimes it could only even be a couple of hours. You step away from something and you come back and you have a different point of view. I think that's important. Try to look up. I think also, and this, I'm very blunt and very honest. And I think there is sometimes no easy way through it. You just have to stick it out. It can be crap at times, and it can feel very difficult, but we have to just kind of say to ourselves, right, I can get through this. I can get through this. And at the end of the day, nobody's making you be an entrepreneur. Nobody's making you run your own business. If you feel it is too hard and it doesn't suit a situation that you have, because like you said, things in life change, things happen, and it's okay. It's okay if it doesn't suit you as well. You don't beat yourself up because it's not working for you. Sometimes I think people get into the entrepreneurial space because a lot of times it's because they're drawn to, but sometimes maybe it's for other reasons, or someone has suggested it, or maybe they think it would be a good idea with the working hours. They think it's going to be easy, I can work from home. It's going to be a gift. Anybody who has worked from home, especially with kids, will know it's not easy. I don't know how many times I've heard, oh, you work from home. That's, you've got a home office. That's great. I'm like, yeah, it's fantastic. And it is, don't get me wrong. It is, it has so many benefits that outweigh the negatives, but there are negatives and it isn't easy, and you end up working all the hours of the day, especially when you're starting off. And I think a lot of people are caught off guard by that. So don't be afraid and don't beat yourself up if this isn't for you. That's fine. If it is for you and you're saying, no, this is what I'm driven to do, I have to see my ideas out there. Look up, change your perspective, and just say to yourself, right, I'm going to get through this. I have to get through this. Yes, there are going to be bad times, but imagine then when things start to get better, how good that's going to feel. Think forward, look forward and say, right, in a year from now, where could I be with this? Where could I be with my business? Where could I be with my brand? What could I be doing? What major impact could I be having? What ideas of mine could be out there, having impact and inspiring or empowering or whatever it is that you want to do with your business. So it's having that forward thought and that perspective, I think.
That's awesome.
Oh, hey, and since you're here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit on the subscribe button and hit the bell button and select all notifications so that whenever we have a new video, you're going to be the first one to know. Until then, keep leading.
When we have problems in our life, like love life or depression, we don't even ask our parents anymore. They're not the first people we ask. We don't even ask our friends anymore sometimes. They're also not the first people we ask. It's a sad thing for me to say this, but a lot of people actually ask Google first.